Beneath Shropshire's rolling hills lie tales of fire, murder, and unquiet souls. From haunted castles to ghostly halls, join creepy experience as we uncover the county's most haunted places. Shrewsbury Castle. Above the River Severn, Shrewsbury Castle rises in red stone, its towers catching the last light of the day. Yet behind the proud battlements lies a legend too grim for the history books, the story of Bloundy Jack, or Bloody Jack, the castle's most feared ghost. His crimes were monstrous, his punishment swift, and his presence, it seems, eternal. In the 14th century, Jack served as a keeper. Within the grounds, a man trusted and familiar to those who lived nearby. When young women began to disappear from the town, no one suspected him until a girl named Fanny vanished. A search led the townsfolk to Jack's quarters, and there, in the dim light of his chamber, they found proof of horror. Some said Fanny still breathed when they broke through the door, bound and terrified. Others whispered of shallow graves and long-forgotten victims hidden beneath the floor. Jack was dragged into the courtyard and hanged from the castle wall before sunset. But his death did not end the terror. On stormy nights, when the wind claws at the battlements, a figure is seen pacing the cobblestones, tall, dark, and half-lit by lightning. He walks with a twisted gait, rope burns still marking his throat, his boots echoing long after the sound should fade. Behind him, faint and sorrowful, follows a line of weeping women, the souls of those he murdered, condemned to trail him until the end of days. Visitors have reported the cries of a girl near Laura's tower, running, screaming, as if trying to escape him still. Others hear boots thudding above them on a balcony that no longer exists. During renovations, workmen spoke of tools that vanished only to reappear, neatly stacked hours later, as though moved by unseen hands. One guard swore he heard laughter in the courtyard, low, mocking, unmistakably human, though he stood there alone. Some say Jack's spirit cannot rest because his victims never received justice. Others believe he remains by choice, delighting in the fear he once caused. Whatever the truth, when thunder rolls across Shrewsbury and rain lashes the ancient stones, few linger near the castle gates. For those who dare claim that just beyond the storm's roar, a man's voice calls faintly from the dark, laughing still as he did the night he died. Roten Castle. Nestled amid the gentle hills west of Shrewsbury stands Roten Castle, its turrets and ivy-draped walls exuding quiet grandeur. Yet when the guests have retired and the corridors fall still, a single presence moves between the rooms, a sorrowful stooped figure known only as the Lady of Rooms 14 and 17. Her tale is old, whispered by staff, and passed on in half-believing tones. Long ago, when the castle was a family home, there lived a young woman of gentle spirit but troubled heart. She fell in love with a man far beneath her station. A gardener or a soldier, no one quite agrees. Their romance was brief and doomed. When her family discovered the affair, the man was sent away, and she was locked within the castle until grief consumed her. Some say she died by her own hand, others that she simply faded her heart, breaking in silence. Today, her presence lingers in two adjoining rooms. Guests staying in room 14 often report waking to find a chill spreading across the bed, followed by the sensation of someone bending over them, not menacing, but unbearably sad. In room 17, the air sometimes fills with the faint rustle of skirts, and the door handle turns gently as if tested by unseen fingers. Staff checking the rooms at night speak of hearing soft weeping and of curtains drawn back by invisible hands. One guest, unaware of the stories, called reception in panic, after seeing an elderly woman standing by the dressing table. Her back was curved, her hands clasped at her chest, and her face, though sorrowful, seemed filled with compassion. When he blinked, she was gone, leaving only a lingering scent of rosewater. Unlike many hauntings, the Lady of Roten is not cruel. She seems more a guardian than a ghost, moving softly from room to room, as though ensuring that all remains in order. Yet those who have met her agree on one thing: her sadness is palpable, a weight that seeps into the air. And when dawn breaks across the misty lawns, some say they glimpse her shadow in the window, still keeping her lonely vigil, bound forever to the castle that could not hold her heart. St. Alkmund's Church. In the very heart of Shrewsbury, the spire of St. Alkmund's Church rises high above the narrow streets, a graceful finger of stone, pointing to heaven. Yet within that beauty lies a grim reminder of pride and folly, the ghost of George Archer, the steeplejack, who wagered his life against the wind. In the mid-19th century, George was known throughout the town for his skill and his daring. He could climb any tower, fix any steeple, and laugh at danger while balanced hundreds of feet above the ground. But one night, after far too much ale, he accepted a reckless bet to scale the church's spire in darkness without ropes to prove he feared nothing. Lanterns flickered below as he began his ascent, the townsfolk watching in awe and alarm. Halfway up, the wind rose. A slip, a cry, and the steeplejack plummeted to the cobblestones. He died instantly, his body broken on the churchyard path. Not long after his burial, strange lights began to appear around the spire. Late-night passers-by saw a figure climbing the stone lantern, swinging from his belt, his form glowing faintly in the moonlight. He always reaches the same height, then vanishes into thin air. Bell ringers inside the tower have felt the ropes pull as though someone unseen tugs them from above. Once during restoration work, a builder felt a hand grip his shoulder and heard a slurred voice mutter, "Nearly there, lad," though he stood alone on the scaffolding. The haunting has never ceased. On windy nights, when the alehouses spill laughter into the streets, a pale shape can still be glimpsed upon the spire, moving slowly upward before fading into the clouds. Some say George climbs endlessly, repeating his fatal wager, condemned by his own pride. Others believe he guards the church, warning those who would make the same mistake. And so beneath St. Alkmund's soaring spire, the townsfolk still lift their eyes when the wind howls through Shrewsbury, for high above the rooftops, a lone climber seems to sway against the stars, forever chasing the bet that cost him his soul. The old post office. Down a narrow street in Shrewsbury stands the old post office, a timber-framed building whose crooked beams have seen centuries of laughter, gossip, and grief. By day, it is a cheerful inn, alive with voices and the smell of ale. But when the doors close and the town settles into silence, its past begins to breathe again. Within those walls dwell three distinct spirits, and each has a story to tell. The first is Lavender Sally, a maid who worked here when the building served as a coaching inn. She was known for her kindness and the faint scent of lavender that always followed her. One night, a traveller took a liking to her, but when she refused his advances, he struck her down in anger. Her body was hidden in the cellar, and though her killer fled, her spirit never left. To this day, staff describe a lingering fragrance of lavender drifting through the corridors, often just before closing time. Glasses shift by themselves. Footsteps cross the floorboards above, when the upper rooms are empty, and on rare nights, a soft humming can be heard from the cellar, the tune Sally was said to sing as she worked. The second ghost is a blacksmith, invisible but noisy. His rhythmic hammering echoes from the courtyard where once stood the old stables and forge that served the inn's travellers. No living hand has struck that anvil for 200 years, yet the steady clang of metal on iron sometimes rings out at midnight. Horses, they say, used to panic without cause when tethered there, eyes rolling toward the empty air. The third is more tragic, a young woman murdered long ago and left in the same cellar where Lavender Sally's scent still drifts. She is seen rarely, only as a pale shape moving just beyond the edge of the lantern light. A faint sob precedes her appearance, and the air grows icy cold. Visitors who sleep above the old cellar have been woken by tapping from beneath the floorboards or by the slow creak of the door opening to an unseen hand. Locals claim that the three ghosts share an uneasy peace, bound together by the violence and toil of centuries past. And when the town clock strikes 2, some swear they hear the blacksmith's hammer fall once more, followed by a whisper of lavender on the night air. Shrewsbury Museum and Art Gallery. In the heart of Shrewsbury, where the square opens to old stone and narrow lanes, stands the Museum and Art Gallery, a handsome Victorian building of red brick and echoing halls. By day, it is a place of quiet study and careful preservation. But when the last visitors leave and the lights dim, something elegant and unnervingly alive begins to move among the exhibits. They call him the dandy of the gallery. His ghostly presence is subtle, refined, and strangely vain. Staff locking up after hours have heard footsteps on the upper balcony, the soft tread of polished boots on a floor that no longer exists. When they look up, they see nothing, only the faint scent of cologne hanging in the air. Sometimes a light flickers to life in an empty room, and a shadow crosses the glass cases, shaped like a man adjusting his cuffs or smoothing his hair. The first report dates back to the early 20th century, when the museum still held civic offices. A night watchman claimed to see a gentleman in fine attire standing by the marble staircase, flicking a large handkerchief across his face as though to brush away the dust. The man smiled, faintly nodded, and disappeared before the watchman could speak. Since then, his appearances have multiplied, always the same motion, the same air of detached amusement. Some say he was a wealthy patron who died suddenly at a public event here, his vanity binding him to the place where he was most admired. Others believe he was an actor buried in costume who returns to play one last role beneath the museum's high ceilings. Visitors have described catching glimpses of him in the mirrored cabinets, his reflection appearing just behind their own, a tall figure with dark eyes and a white cravat. One cleaner swore that a gentleman's voice whispered good evening from the corner of an empty gallery. She left her keys behind and never returned. Though he does no harm, the dandy unsettles even the most skeptical. His elegance feels out of place, like a memory that refuses to fade. And when the clock strikes midnight, the air grows still, the lights flicker on one by one, and somewhere in the upper hall, a shadow straightens his tie before fading into the dark. Lilleshall Abbey. Hidden among trees and wild grass near Newport lie the solemn ruins of Lilleshall Abbey, where fragments of stone arches rise like ribs of an ancient beast. By daylight, it is a place of calm and beauty, birds nesting in broken walls, sunlight spilling through the cloisters. But as dusk deepens, the peace fades, replaced by whispers carried on the wind. For among these ruins walks the Black Monk, and he has a question for those who dare to meet him. His story reaches back to the 12th century, when the abbey was home to Augustinian canons. One of them, legend says, uncovered a terrible secret, a hidden sin buried within the order itself. Bound by his vow of silence, he carried that secret to his grave, but his soul could find no rest. Now, centuries later, he still wanders the site, appearing as a tall figure in a hooded robe, face-shadowed hands, clasped in prayer. Those who have seen him say his voice is soft and hollow, like wind through stone, as he asks the same question again and again. Have you found the secret visitors who stumble upon the abbey at twilight have reported a sudden drop in temperature, followed by the distinct smell of incense? Cameras fail, and the air seems to thrum faintly as if charged with invisible power. Some hear low chanting from the chapel ruins, others the faint echo of a scream, long drawn out and full of pain. On stormy nights, the sound grows louder, carrying through the fields like the wail of a soul torn between worlds. Paranormal investigators claim to have captured strange readings near the eastern transept, where the monk most often appears. One visitor swore she saw him standing motionless beneath the arch, his hands raised as though in blessing. When she turned to call her companion, he spoke not aloud, but inside her mind, the same haunting words. No one knows what the secret might be. Some say it lies beneath the abbey, sealed in an unmarked crypt. Others believe it is a warning, a curse that guards the sins of the past. Whatever truth the black monk keeps, he guards it, still wandering the ruins with the patience of the dead, asking his question to every passing soul. Pitchford Hall, deep in the Shropshire countryside, surrounded by old oaks and still waters, stands Pitchford Hall, a grand timbered house whose beauty hides centuries of quiet sorrow. Within its panelled rooms and twisting staircases linger not one, but many ghosts, as if the house itself refuses to let go of the lives it has seen. Visitors often notice it first as a smell, the faint, unmistakable scent of tobacco drifting through empty corridors. It is said to be the calling card of Robin Grant, a former owner, known for his sharp wit and his ever-present cigarillo. Long after his death, guests have awoken to find the room filled with smoke, their throats catching as though someone was seated beside the bed, puffing contentedly in the dark. But the tobacco ghost is not alone. A lady in a dressing gown, small and elderly, has been seen gliding slowly through the upper rooms, pausing as if searching for something long lost. She never speaks, though some claim she nods politely, before vanishing at the turn of the stair. In the long gallery, the spirit of a cavalier, boots polished sword at his side, paces restlessly, the echo of his spurs ringing faintly in the silence. Others speak of a phantom clad in green armor, glimpsed only in moonlight, guarding the hall like a sentry from another age. Outside, by the lake, a different sorrow lingers. A gamekeeper, upon learning he had a fatal illness, walked into the dark water one night, choosing to end his pain. On still evenings, his shape can be seen retracing that final path, a man in worn tweed, striding toward the water's edge before fading into the mist. Dogs refuse to go near the spot, their hackles rising, their eyes fixed on something unseen. Pitchford Hall remains exquisite, one of England's most beautiful Tudor houses, but beneath its elegance runs an undercurrent of unease. Those who stay overnight describe the air as watchful, the silence heavy, the scent of smoke rising when no fire burns. And sometimes, when the hour grows late, a thin voice seems to drift through the corridors as if from one spirit to another, the faint laugh of a man who still enjoys his cigar centuries after the flame went out. The Bell Inn, on the edge of the village of Tong, surrounded by quiet fields and winding lanes, stands the Bell Inn, a welcoming country pub where laughter and music fill the air. Yet behind the warm glow of its windows lies a gentler haunting, one not born of anger or malice, but of innocence lost. For within its conservatory runs the spirit of a little girl with long curling hair. No one knows her name, nor the age she was when she died. Some say she was the daughter of a Victorian innkeeper who slipped and fell while playing on the tiled floor. Others believe she was a traveller's child who fell ill on the road and never left. But whatever her story, her laughter soft and fleeting still dances through the rooms. Late in the evening, when the pub grows quiet, staff have seen her dart from one end of the conservatory to the other, her pale dress fluttering behind her. Cutlery shifts by itself, as though her small hands were still setting the tables for unseen guests. On one occasion, a waitress locking up for the night heard the clatter of spoons and the murmur of childish chatter coming from downstairs. When she called out, the voices stopped. She found the room empty, but the faint impression of bare feet marked the condensation on the floor. Guests describe a sudden feeling of being watched, then the scent of fresh soap and flowers filling the air as though someone had just bathed and passed by. A few have felt a tiny tug on their sleeves, followed by the lightest of giggles. One landlord swore he saw her reflection in the conservatory glass, a child standing just behind him, though when he turned, only the wind stirred the curtains. Sometimes those who know her story leave a small toy or sweet upon the table overnight. By morning, the gift has moved or vanished entirely. The inn's old regulars say it's best to greet her kindly if you sense her near. For though she means no harm, she does not like to be ignored. And on quiet nights in Tong, when the glasses are polished and the lamps turned low, that laughter returns bright, distant, and heartbreakingly young. Horton Hall, in the market town of Shropshire, where the mist gathers thick along the hedgerows, stands Horton Hall, an elegant Georgian manor wrapped in quiet woods. It is now a hotel peaceful and refined, yet the walls remember a night of horror that scorched itself into the building's soul. For they say that sometimes after dark, a figure wreathed in flames runs screaming from the hall toward the lake, the ghost of the burning headmistress. In the mid-20th century, when the hall served as a girls' school, tragedy struck. A respected headmistress, strict but fair, learned that the school faced closure, her life's work slipping away. One winter night, in the 1950s, despair overcame her. She locked herself in her quarters, doused her clothes in kerosene, and set them alight. The fire spread swiftly through the upper floor, leaving charred beams and terror in its wake. Though the blaze was contained, she perished, her body found near the window, hands raised as if pleading for forgiveness. Not long after reports began, a porter crossing the grounds before dawn saw a woman running toward the lake, her body engulfed in fire. He rushed to help, but as he reached the water's edge, she vanished, leaving only ripples across the still surface. Guests have since described the smell of burning cloth drifting through the corridors and the sound of footsteps pounding down the main staircase, followed by a sudden silence. In the West Wing, a faint orange glow is sometimes seen beneath the door of an empty room. Staff who enter find nothing but cold air and a lingering scent of smoke. Some have even claimed to hear her voice, low, desperate, murmuring apologies into the night. The legend says that the headmistress runs each year on the anniversary of her death, doomed to relive her final moments again and again. And on nights, when the fog hangs low over the water, locals who pass by the gates sometimes glimpse the flicker of fire through the trees, a lone burning figure racing toward the lake, forever trying to reach salvation that never comes. Overley Hall, Hidden among quiet lanes near Wellington stands Overley Hall, a stately house turned school where laughter once echoed through its wide corridors. But when the laughter fades and the building settles into silence, that same joy seems to echo faintly as though some part of it never truly left. For Overley Hall is said to be haunted by a young girl from the Victorian age, a spirit both gentle and sorrowful, who walks the halls long after her name was forgotten. No one knows who she was, a student, a servant's child, or perhaps the daughter of one of the hall's early owners. The earliest reports came from teachers who worked there decades ago. They spoke of a faint patter of footsteps along the upstairs corridor when the school was empty and the rustle of skirts brushing against the walls. Some claimed to have seen her, a girl of about 12, dressed in an old-fashioned frock, her hair tied with a ribbon. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and unblinking, as though she did not understand where she was. She never speaks. Those who encounter her describe a sense of quiet confusion rather than fear, as if she is lost between moments, trapped in the echo of a world that has moved on without her. Sometimes she appears by the staircase, one hand resting on the banister, looking downward as though waiting for someone who never comes. In the classrooms, books fall from shelves and chairs scrape lightly across the floor. One night, a teacher, marking papers alone, heard a child's voice humming an old tune, faint and broken. When she called out, the sound stopped. A moment later, the door handle turned slowly and a gust of cold air swept through the room. Even the animals seemed to sense her. Dogs brought onto the grounds refused to enter certain rooms, growling softly at empty corners. And yet those who have seen the ghost say her sadness is what lingers most, not menace, but yearning. Overley Hall still stands strong, its red bricks glowing in the afternoon sun. But when dusk falls and the last light leaves the windows, some say the girl appears once more, stepping silently from shadow to shadow, a lost child wandering forever through the corridors of time. From monks in ruins to girls lost in time, Shropshire's ghosts still walk beneath its quiet skies. If these stories stirred your imagination, subscribe to Creepy Experience, share your thoughts, and follow us to the next haunted county.